Now, last night, Linda, I took some time to take aim at what seems to me to be a policy that is all going to make very sense in risk aversion, because obviously the best way to stop motor accidents is for nobody to go driving. But the idea that there are, on catastrophic fire warning days, not fires within X kilometres, the ability for schools in New South Wales to now say, no, school's not going to open tomorrow. Why? Because if there is a bushfire, it'll be a terrible bushfire. But is there a bushfire? No, there isn't a bushfire. I can't get my head around it. Linda, what am I missing?
Look, I'm sure you've had this experience, Paul, but, you know, in my short life when I've been in local government leadership roles and had to talk to CEOs of councils or mayors or councillors the day of or the day after a catastrophic event like a bushfire or a flood, often it is the case that a town was thinking that the bushfire or the flood was not going to come in their direction, and they were caught by surprise, no matter all the intelligence from their local agencies, no matter all the intelligence from the Bureau of Meteorology. So, look, I think this is a really safe and sensible step. We have to be cautious, because that day after, when you're looking back, you know, and you're looking back at schools being destroyed, I've spoken to mayors on the phone the day after disasters who've lost everything. They say to me, Linda, my whole council, I've lost every lawnmower, I've lost every truck, I've lost every community hall. You know, it is just devastating. These regional communities need to be supported. They need to be given support on the ground to make good decisions with the Department of Education about whether to keep children home and safe. And I think ultimately, you know, the risk of missing a day of school when it comes to the danger of an unpredictable and ferocious bushfire is just something that we increasingly do have to live with in Australia. We've seen floods in Asia this week, absolutely devastating. People, you know, unable to get out of the way in time. This is the, you know, increased weather volatility that many of us who believe the science of climate change have been talking about for a long time.
I was waiting for it to make an appearance.
We've got to make the right decisions to keep people safe.
So again, to a point, I'm following the logic, and then I think what's really about this here is, again, creating further points of trauma around the term catastrophic, right? We all understand that, yes, if one took off, what it could be. But navigating the risk, and again, I know there are very specific circumstances in very specific schools where one tree's too close, and if it was set 2 metres, I get it, right? But as a rule, Luce, it does my head in, this idea that the best way to guarantee that no one gets hurt is no one leaves the house.
I think it's absurd, and I think it's a sign of overreach, if I'm quite honest. Let's take the most recent example where a catastrophic fire event was declared. Because we seem to know so much about the science and how we can control the weather thanks to the climate apologists, look at what happened that day. There were no storms forecast that particular day. We were told how catastrophic the event was and that we all had to batten down the hatches because of how extreme the heat was going to be. Well, the weather then turned, didn't it? And all hell broke loose in the form of hailstorms, and people were now in a situation where they were preparing for an entirely different weather event. But I do find there's also an element of hypocrisy. Again, the following day, extremely hot, fire ban still in place. Of course, so many homes, particularly across Western Sydney, suffering power outages. But it didn't stop Clover Moore letting off fireworks for the lighting of the Christmas tree. So again, I think we have to temper it with some balance and some common sense. If we know that we are in a situation where we have an emerging bushfire, isn't that when we react in that moment? And I know that they're highly unpredictable, and I know that they can cause absolute and utter devastation. But if it breaks out, then prepare everybody by all means. But you're never going to stop these weather events. And I think creating this absolute sense of fear, shutting down schools, it's just that little step too far for me.
To me, again, it makes sense if it's a little spit of a school and there's one road in and one road out. But you know what's going to happen here? Sydney, Newcastle, Wollongong, you know, the one at the top of the hill in Port Macquarie, all of them will start to close down again. Oh, abundance of caution. Well, remember, what was it, when Homer Simpson was in charge of the Bear Patrol? And Lisa looks at him and says, well, you realise that this piece of wood is keeping the bears away. And she goes, really? How much do I have to pay for it? She was trying to explain specious reasoning. But it's a good point, right? Which is we're going to say, no one died because no one was at school. Well, hang on. Maybe it wouldn't have been an issue in and around there. All right. Thank you, guys. Do appreciate it. Have a lovely weekend.